I know I'm getting better looks than he's getting.
Get the beat, he was trash, so reflection in the mirror, but regardless. I'm the dude that Brendon wouldn't fight when we were amateurs.
I don't know where you got that, man. I had never heard your name pop up, man. Trust me.
I'm looking to hurt Brendon Raftery.
It's not gonna happen, man.
Welcome to the debut edition of Face to Face for Front Street Fights. I'm Matt Johnson, and these segments that you're about to see on FrontStreetFights.com, as well as our YouTube page, are designed for you, the fans, to hear from the fighters that you will see live at CenturyLink Arena on February 13th for the first time, and also to do in a setting that not only allows them to hear their opponent's comments, but to respond to them as they see fit. Joining me tonight are the two men that will be competing inside the cage, and our co-main event is going to be a bantamweight bout between Casey Johnson, also Brendon Raftery, and joining us this evening is matchmaker for Front Street Fights, Todd Carlson. And Todd, I want to start with you. Why this match between Casey and Brendon, and why do you feel that it's co-main event worthy?
Sure. Brendon, we signed a few months ago to a multi-fight contract, and he's an athlete here in town that we thought that had some talent and some ability, and the ability to go on to bigger and better promotions. And so we did that. He's fought for us in the past. I'd like to have him back on the card. And when I started looking for opponents, if you can find a guy in your own backyard that is as talented and as aggressive, and that we ran into Casey. Casey and I have been talking for a few months, and he's had some bigger shows on the radar, and he's been gracious enough to compete for us.
And Casey, speaking of competing, it's been a while since you've been competing. Can you tell us why that's been, and why do you feel that now was the time to get back into the cage?
I'd like to call it Dominic Cruz syndrome. I've had back-to-back injuries, had a big camp, injured, had another big healed, recovery, surgery, another big camp, signed a contract with Bellator, 3-fight deal. 5 days before I fly out to Thackerville, Oklahoma, another injury. So back to Dallas, another surgery, another year and a half of rehab. And, I'm back. This is, Brendon Raftery, this is the fight on the horizon. I'm looking further on down the road. I've got a lot bigger plans in my fighting career than February 13th. And this is where it gets started again, A lot of licensing issues with not fighting for 3 years. There's big shows. Fighters are a dime a dozen, and they can grab whoever they want. So right now it's about getting back, getting active, showing them that I'm still the same fighter I was. That's not true. I'm a better fighter than I was before, and I want everyone to see that.
You say you're a better fighter now. Where are you training? Who are you training with? How are you getting back into condition for this fight?
My head coach, Tony Fricklin, he's the one that took me from from having 3 amateur titles here, Vegas, Washington, and turned me pro, and I followed that guy all around the world. Wherever he is where I am. I've been in Vegas, I've been in LA. Currently we have a little private facility that me, him, and a few really tight-knit guys are training and preparing for this fight.
Speaking of training, Brendon, do you feel that where you train, that being Street Blast Gym, Idaho Combat Fitness, who you train with, the likes of Jesse Brock, Scott Tomat, Scott Jorgensen, do you feel like that's an advantage for you, the experience and wealth of knowledge that camp brings?
Absolutely. I'm training with better teammates than he is, and I don't know anything about his coaching staff, but I have a lot of confidence in the guys I train with and the guys that are telling me what to do. And they prove it themselves. They all fight too, so they all know exactly what to do and what to tell their students. So I have full trust in, like you said, Jesse and Tomits and Jorgensen and all the guys I train with on a daily basis. I know I'm getting better looks than he's getting. And
but don't forget, dude. Everybody that I've competed with against your camp, I've subbed, I've finished, and I've beat. So all these guys that are better than me,
yeah.
Remember, I've beat when we competed against them. The only one is your Jesse Brock, your coach, you're the leader in charge, and he beat me by some points in a JITS tournament. Couldn't finish me,
right,
which is something I've done to your training partners.
For
so
sure. Yeah.
I have a hard time sitting here saying that you train with better people than I do, when you don't even know the people I'm training with, man.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I don't know anybody you're training with. And yeah, you subbed a couple guys in a tournament, and that's great.
Freddie Ortega, I beat in an MMA competition. Everybody that I fought in the cage when I was a CCF champion, when you wouldn't fight me,
sure.
I beat as well, remember?
Now, you two obviously do have some history. I know, Brendon, you and I were talking before this. You remember seeing him fight here at CenturyLink Arena when it was a different name. When you saw him fight back then, you told me off camera that you knew at some point you were going to be able to fight him.
Right.
How have you seen him grow since that time? How do you think he is now?
You know, yeah, like I said, when I was just kind of coming into the sport, he was already kind of doing his thing as an amateur, and I would watch him, you know, really, like I said, really young. I think I was like 16, 15, and I know he was older than me fighting. But yeah, I would come watch him, you know, and then I had my first fight here at the same, you know, place, and then I got a little streak going, and I knew we'd fight, you know, and like I said, we kind of just went our different ways, and I didn't really follow his career too much, so I don't really know. I knew that he had an opportunity with Bellator and had the injury. And other than that, you know, he hasn't fought in I don't know how long, so I haven't had a chance to follow or you know, watch his career.
Todd?
Let me ask you a quick question, because obviously I've talked to both you guys, but you know, what do you think about, you know, where the sport of MMA was back in 2011 or so, kind of the last time he was in the cage, and obviously the sport's evolved a ton since then. Do you think that's an advantage for you or disadvantage for him? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, the sport absolutely is always evolving, and there's always, you know, the next generation of fighter. You'll watch in the UFC these young guys come up and they start taking out these old lions that are just because they have a new style, you know, and it's always changing. And you have to learn and get better. And you know, I know he's been out of it. I know he's obviously been watching it, and he's obviously been training. So I'm not gonna put a lot of chips in the bag. It's the fact that he doesn't know, you know, where the sport's at right now. I'm sure he's intelligent enough to realize that it's not just the same old, you know, wrestler versus boxer. You got to be good at everything.
In Casey, how do you feel about that? Obviously, you've been in the game for a while. You've been in that era that Brendon refers to. How has it evolved since you've been in there? And what's different from the last time you stepped in the cage? And what are you going to have to do to adapt to some of the new things that you've seen in the sport?
I think, first of all, the thing that's most important is we call it what it is. It's not a sport. It's not a game. It's a fight. Okay? And yeah, a lot of things evolve. But fighting's been happening on this planet since day one. Okay, and I'm a very good fighter. I might not be the best athlete out there, but I guarantee you when it comes time, he's gonna understand that it's not a sport. This isn't a game. This isn't to play it up for the judges. That's why all these old guys are getting beat by these new guys, because they're still playing patty cake, looking to score their points. I'm looking to hurt Brendon Raftery. If it's uncomfortable, that's where we're fighting. If he doesn't like it, that's where it's gonna happen. I don't need the referee, I don't need you, I don't need Todd. We can draw a line right here, we can stand up and we can get it done. Brendon, this is bottom line for me. He signed his name on a line that says he's tougher than me. When he's standing there and that door's locked and we're looking across from each other, we'll see if that's true or not. I don't think it is.
Speaking of your last couple of fights, Brendon, you know, probably something you don't like referring to, but you are technically 0-2 at Front Street Fights. You do have a win in between those two matches.
Not technically. He's 0-2. It's okay. We all got records. We don't got to be soft here.
No, I thank you for the correction. You are 0-2 at Front Street Fights. You do have a win in between. What have you done to your game to maybe correct some mistakes? What did you see from your last couple of fights at Front Street Fights that you need to change for your upcoming bout?
Well, I watched, you know, both those fights a lot, and I'll just be the first one to say I fought terrible. That's not me. That's not how I fight. That was garbage. I had to sit there and watch those and try to study myself, and I was just disgusted with myself. So, you know, I'll talk all this for me on that own fight because I fought terrible. I did. I watched that fight with Joaquin, a guy who I should have smashed. You know, a guy who, whatever, nice kid, but terrible. And he held me down, and he was able to, you know, just kind of wrestle me. And I watched that fight, and I'm dead tired after the first round. And it was one of the hardest I had trained for that fight. And I'm just wondering why am I feeling like this after, you know, round one? So I went back and I studied, and I was watching what I did. I studied my last training camp, and I've made a few adjustments, and I'm feeling a lot better and a lot more confident about everything. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll be the first one to say that.
Well, you were the first one to say it here. Casey, you're going to be the second one. We know that you were at Brendon's last fight. What did you see? What was your assessment of that fight? What did you see some of maybe his weaknesses that he spoke of?
I'm not going to talk about Brendon's fight, man. That stuff's in the past. I'm looking towards the future. Okay, beyond where Brendon's career is, the reason that those fights happen, the reason you feel like that when you're sitting on the stool at the end of the first round is because you're fighting someone tough. Okay, Brendon's record, he's 4-2. Everybody he's fought, two of the guys are 0-4. Okay, I mean, that means you barely have a pulse when you get out of bed in the morning. Okay, the other guys that he's fought and beat have losses. Both the fights that Brandon's lost have been to tough dudes, not outstanding dudes, just tough guys. Okay, like he said, Joaquim's trash. Kid that beat you is trash, so reflection in the mirror. But regardless, that's what happens, dude. Everyone has a game plan. Then you get punched in the face, and that changes because it's not a sport. It's not a game. It's a fight. And either you show up and you're ready to fight and you're ready to die and get drugged out of the ring, or you're not, and you quit on the stool in the second round because you got your teeth hit too hard. Let's talk about that. Joe Hamilton's fight at Front Street Fights. He didn't lose. He didn't get subbed. The judges didn't even walk him out of there. He sat on the stool. He looked across at his opponent and he said, "I don't have it today. I'm not man enough for you." I mean, right? That's what happened.
Going back to that, Brendon.
So-
Obviously, we do know.
Well, I wasn't done yet.
My apologies.
Okay, I mean,
My apologies, please
as far as
continue.
talking about Brendon Raftery, that's irrelevant. Okay, winners, like Conor McGregor said, okay, winners focus on winners, losers focus on other winners. He can look at everything he wants to look at. I'm looking ahead every day. I'm looking at my coach. I'm looking at the pads. I'm looking at the bag I'm hitting. And at the end of the camp, it'll be Brendon Raftery I'm looking at. That's it.
So would it be fair to say that you keep saying you refer to the horizon you're looking forward? Do you see this, to make a gross analogy, basically a speed bump to get back to Bellator?
Absolutely not. A guy's going to strap his gloves up. He's going to make weight. He's a tough guy. He deserves to be in the cage. Am I going to look past somebody like that? No. Am I going to look past somebody in the bar when he's attacking my girlfriend? No, it doesn't. At the end of the, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't. It's a fight. I'm ready to fight. That's what I'm ready to do. It's not a speed bump. It's nothing.
You know,
I'm ready to fight.
and I've got a, the other interesting matchup, or the intriguing thing to this matchup is, you've got a lot to prove here. Your hometown, you're coming off 2 losses here in this arena. You're jumping back on the horse, and you're headed on hopefully to bigger and better. Hopefully both of you guys are. You're jumping back in. It's a big night. So, who do you think maybe feels the most pressure here for a win?
To be honest with you, I think I'm in the hot seat here. Brendon has everything to gain by beating me. I'm the one that's left. I'm the one that's had the Bellator contract. I'm the dude that Brendon wouldn't fight when we were amateurs.
I don't know where you got that, man.
Who
I don't know where you got that,
Who fought for my
man.
title when they relinquished it from me?
I have no clue.
You did.
I stopped messing around with CCF.
You did, bro. You fought for
I
my
fought
title.
Chuck Jordan, who
Yeah,
had the title.
But in that weekend,
That was
I
his
was
title.
I was in Vegas at the where was it? Planet Hollywood? No, it was. What was the name of that show I was at? It was MMA Explosion. I was fighting Elijah Muhammad, defending a title in Vegas. The same weekend, you were fighting Chuck Jordan for my title. And up until that point,
how was that? He had the title.
Up until that point, because they relinquished it from me and gave it to you two to fight for. Up until that point,
that's not
your
my problem,
manager.
man.
No, but this is your problem. Your manager, Tom Supnet, kept saying, "You're not ready. You're not ready yet." I'm beating everybody around you.
I had never heard your name pop up, man. Trust me.
Of course
Tom
not, because
never.
your manager's not going to feed you to the wolves, and that's what he told me and my manager on a consistent basis. So you're this little guy that they were bringing up and avoiding Casey Johnson. They were shelving you to here, and then as soon as I left the scene, Brendon Raftery makes his rise. Problem is, Brendon Raftery jumped the gun a little bit. Now he's got 2 losses on his record. He's 4-2.
Okay. With that being said, on both sides.
Well, I didn't want to
Todd, you
stick
brought
around
up
and have 20 amateur fights like you, man.
No, but
There's no point
But I'm
in
3-0.
fighting that much.
There is. There absolutely is, and it's called an O at the end of your record. Okay, you have no marketability.
but-
You're not a national champion wrestler. You're not a national champion
Doesn't
kickboxer. Black belt.
matter, man.
It absolutely does, because
No.
this absolutely is an entertainment business. If you want to talk about the business side, and if you're not marketable as a fighter, you don't have any career. Okay, so you don't have none of these things, these national credentials that make you marketable. So the only thing you have to make you marketable is what I've got, and that's the O at the end of my record. Because when I'm 11-0, when I'm 15-0, when I'm 20-0, they can't say anything to me. I beat everybody they've lined up. You've already lost that, bro.
Yeah, it's not about records, man.
It
It's not
sure
about
is in
records.
this sport when you're making money.
No.
Tell that to Conor McGregor. Tell that to Dominic Cruz.
Look at
Tell that to any of
plenty
these
of
dudes that are at the
fighters,
elite of the
man.
sport.
Plenty of
Tell them at the
fighters
top. Tell
in
them
the
that
UFC.
losing's okay. People that are okay with losing, we have a name for those people, dude. Losers, bro.
You can't be a champion until you lose. I think you learn valuable lessons. Valuable lessons.
Obviously,
Talk to Mayweather.
obviously,
He's a
2
champion.
different schools of
it's
thought here.
boring as hell, man.
Obviously,
and he
2
wins,
different.
and he's one of the richest people on the planet of this earth. What's your
That's
goal in this
great.
sport? To
Hey,
make money?
I like to fight, man. I like to fight.
We'll see if that changes.
Yeah.
All right, obviously 2 different schools of thought here. Obviously, that's and that's totally fine. To each their own. Todd, you did bring up a good point. Who, in your opinion, has the most to gain and the most to lose from this, from a matchmaker standpoint? If you're putting yourself not only in the Front Street Fight shoes, but if you're an upper promotion, somebody that has had experience with him before, somebody that's looking up.
I think Casey's got a good point. An undefeated fighter is interesting. I think bigger shows. I think if Casey gets the win on February 13th, You know, there's really nothing holding him back. I'm sure there's plenty of promotions that would love to have him. So he's got a ton to gain. You know, Brendon, he gets the win. It's a big win. You know, it's a win over an undefeated opponent. It's at home. You know, he's right back in the game again. And you know, so I have a hard time answering your question. Who's got the most to, you know, to lose? Casey, if he loses, has probably got the most to lose, to be honest with you.
You're hearing a lot of emotions from the fighters. When you put things together on paper, obviously you talk to them, you get to know them more than we do from a broadcast standpoint. Is this kind of what you were seeing coming from this fight?
Well, you know, having talked to both of these guys individually, you know, the one thing that I really, really like is that they're fighters. You know, they're not. One of the very first times I met Casey, we talked at the gym, you know, and he said, you know, I mentally a few years ago I got over the hump, and he alluded to it tonight. He says, you know, instead of move, counter, move, position, he goes, it's a fist fight. You know, I'm gonna beat the hell out of the guy. And as a matchmaker and promoter, I love that. You know, so I think, and you know, Brendon's a fiery guy. He thinks the same way. So, you know, why not put them both in the cage and let the fans enjoy what I'm going to expect to be the fight of the night.
With those words being said from Todd, gentlemen, we're going to give you just a couple of minutes to address your opponent, address the fight as we get ready to close this out. Casey, I want to start with you. Your final thoughts before the next time you see Brendon. Obviously, is going to be inside the cage. You got about 3 more weeks to prepare. Just give us your final thoughts heading into this battle.
I guess I'm confused on your question. What exactly are you asking me? What am I thinking right now, today?
Your final thoughts is over the next couple of weeks, your preparations, how you're going to feel that night, getting back into the cage. There is going to be the question, you know, has the time off affected you, and how quick can you shake that rust off?
Yeah, okay.
All that stuff, and finally getting to face an opponent you say has been dodging you for years and trying to protect an undefeated record.
Ring rust isn't real, man. It's not a real thing. Ring rust is for people that play the sport, not for people that like to fight. I'll fight a dude on the street right now. I don't need to be having an 8-week camp or a 12-week camp or a 15-week camp. I like to saddle up, see if that dude's tougher, and go for it. And so far, even though I had a large amateur career, 22, 24, 16, 5-1, whatever it was, so many numbers, I'll tell you what that equates to me. That's experience. Okay, and whether you're fighting it in 3-round fights or 3-minute round fights or 5-minute round fights, okay, my experience in the cage is far surpassed this kid. Okay, and that's how I look at Brendon Raftery as a kid, because you haven't overcome any adversity at this point in your career. You face no injuries, you face no tough opponents, you haven't even fought out of your home in a big show where the lights were actually a thing, okay? I just don't see what Brendon Raftery's camp is telling him on a day-to-day basis that makes him get up off the couch and come into the gym and not go, I've already lost this thing. Okay, because I know what my camp's telling me, and it's the same thing they've told me that's created my success to this point, to the 3 amateur titles in 3 different states with an overall bantamweight record at 13-0-1. If you count my 3 pro fights, 16-0-1 with 3 titles. So, you know, I'm not really doing anything except looking ahead, looking at my coach, and taking today's training, taking tomorrow's training for what it is, because I know the outcome come February 13th. It's going to be the same outcome that has been throughout my whole career, an O at the end of my record.
Brendon, obviously your final thoughts, you've heard what Casey's had to say. He already knows the outcome. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to play spoiler, but it's not going to happen, man. Your long layoff, I mean, I agree with you. Ring rust isn't really necessarily a real thing. It's a mindset, and if you've been training and you've been staying in the game mentally, ring rust really isn't that real. I agree. If you just watched the Dominic Cruz fight last weekend, he came back from, you know, like you say, multiple injuries, 4 or 5 year layoff with only 1 fight in between, came back and won the championship. So I'm not banking on the fact that Casey's been out for so long that I'm going to have the advantage of you know, him being rusty in there and having to get back in the rhythm of things. I'm not banking on that. I'm banking on my hard training, my skills, my speed, my quickness, my boxing, everything that I think I'm better at than him. And I'm going to go in there. That's the best part about this sport. We can talk about records and fights and amateurs and titles. That's awesome. Lovely. I don't care. I don't care at all. Okay? You know, I like to fight. Win, lose, draw, I like to fight. That's what I love. That's what I feel the most alive in that moment, fighting. It's just where I thrive.
How can you say that, though? How can you say win, lose, draw? I don't know how you can even.
If you're a true fighter at heart, man, if you're a true fighter at heart, the fight itself is what it's about. I'm not gonna get rich doing this. I'm not gonna be a billionaire.
Bro, if you're a true fighter at heart and you're getting your ass beat all the time, let me tell you what you are. You're in a hospital somewhere, bro. That's where you are. that is not, fighting is about winning, bro, and it has been from the
Yeah,
beginning of
I know,
time.
man.
Grabbing a dude, dragging him by his hair and clubbing him in the head with a rock. From the beginning, it was winning, bro. That's what fighting is. It's about winning.
For sure.
And if it's not about winning for you, you're in for,
I didn't
we'll see you
say.
on the 13th, bro.
Brandon, we
It's
want to give
about-
you just a couple more seconds to kind of wrap it up here, and Todd, we want to get to you here in a second.
Like I said, the best part about all this talk is, or the best part about this sport rather, is that we get a fight at the end of all this. So I think everything that's been said, that's great, but we'll see in the fight in a few weeks.
Todd, you've heard their closing statements from a matchmaker standpoint. You ready for this one?
Sure, yeah, I'm excited, and I want to thank both of them for competing, on Front Street Fights card. I think it's a great opportunity for them. It's a great opportunity for the promotion, and it's going to be fireworks, obviously. So I'm excited.
Well, Todd, we want to thank you, and gentlemen, I want to thank you both for taking your time to not only be here tonight, but in an unusual way, face your opponent before you face off with them here on the first edition of Face to Face. So, gentlemen, we appreciate your time this evening. So,
Thank you.
Well, that is going to do it for now. And the next time that you see these two are going to be live inside the cage at CenturyLink Arena on February 13th as a part of Front Street Fights 8 Young Guns presented by bodybuilding.com. And if you couldn't tell from that interview, it is going to be an explosive night of fights. So don't miss out. Go online right now to CenturyLinkArenaBoise.com to get your tickets again for Front Street Fights 8 Young Guns presented by bodybuilding.com. For everybody at Front Street Fights, I'm Matt Johnson, and we will see you on February 13th.